You gotta be fucking kidding me. What's going on YouTube? Anthony Olan here, and I've been trying to do this video for a couple of days now, trying to get the right format of how I want to make this video, and I just decided to do it this way because I tried recording it like 4 different times, and I just couldn't get my point across, and I couldn't get it to the way I wanted to, the way I felt it should have been done. So I'm going to just talk about these thoughts that I had with some gameplay in the background. Hopefully you guys enjoy the gameplay and what I'm going to talk about here. And essentially my problem right now is what I call the 3 R's: the remakes, the remasters, and the reboots. Now, I'm not going to focus too much on the reboots right now because we did get a few reboots in recent years, and most of them have been pretty successful. I'm talking about Tomb Raider reboot, God of War reboot, Doom technically got a reboot. Those kind of reboots were pretty successful, whereas DMC Devil May Cry wasn't as successful. But for the most part, reboots were okay, changing the formula, changing everything up, the story, the gameplay, and they worked, right? But I've been struggling with this idea of doing remakes for games that may not be as old to get one or doesn't really need one. And initially, my thoughts on this was about Last of Us Part 1 remake. And I, just like everyone else, I had thought this game doesn't need a remake. It looks fine on the remaster. And I'm not saying that the answer to the question of games that need remake is necessarily a yes or a no. It's not necessarily black or white. It's much more complicated than that. Because I, for a while, said Last of Us did not need a remake. And I was kind of wrong. I did some more research. I did some gameplay of the remastered, the copy I own. And I gotta be honest, what I've seen so far, Last of Us Remastered does not look as good as I remembered it looking. Not saying it looks horrible, because it doesn't. It's just certain parts of the game doesn't look that great. Certain textures don't look that great, especially compared to Last of Us Part 2 and, of course, the new remake. But to be fair, and to, I guess, play devil's advocate, we should get some games for a remake, but only if it's done properly and if it has the proper price tag. Last of Us Part 1 remake, I think, is or was a good idea, but the price tag itself wasn't. There is a lot of arguments about whether or not you're basically paying just for a facelift. And as I said, I did play my copy of Remastered on my PS5, and it didn't really look that great compared to what I thought it looked like back on PS4. And while the remake will look a lot better and has all the new improvements, the smarter AI, the accessibility features, different changes in the environment to make the world feel more believable and much more lush and fleshed out, I just think the price tag was a bit too much. I don't really care about the new customization screen when you're changing your guns. I don't care about the accessibility features for me. For other players, sure. If people who need them, great. That's a really great thing. I think more games should do that. I know another game recently, it might have been Last of Us Part 2, actually had that as well. And I think God of War 2018 has some of those settings. But then you look at how they didn't include the multiplayer because they want to save it for another multiplayer game that they're making. And that's where the problem comes in. My brother actually owns Last of Us Remake on his PS5, but somebody gave him a $50 gift card to GameStop for his birthday, and he just put the remaining $20 in tax, and that's a good deal. At that point, yeah, go buy Last of Us Part 1 Remake, because you're not paying a lot at that point if you got a gift card or something. I'll probably wait till it's on sale for cheap enough. I know PS5 games, when they go on sale, they're usually around $30 to $40. That might be a better price tag. I can't find it used currently. I don't know if it's sold enough for people to sell copies of it to GameStop, or if people who bought it just haven't sold it yet. So what's my beef with this thing? Well, we got some news recently that Horizon Zero Dawn is potentially getting a PS5 remake, and I also played my copy of Zero Dawn on my PS5, and I'm going to say this. Like I said, I'm going to be fair. It does not look bad enough to get a remake. but there were certain things in the game that I saw that could have been fixed a little bit, but not enough to justify a full-on remake, especially a $70 remake. On top of that, there's talks that they were going to make a multiplayer Horizon game when you already got the VR game releasing next year, potentially, and somewhere in the next so years, they're going to do the third Horizon game. There was rumors it'll be a trilogy. I haven't beaten Forbidden West yet. I didn't even beat Zero Dawn when I had it or when I played it last. Not to mention, Forbidden West just came out this year. So why are we talking about Zero Dawn remake now when we got the sequel this year and the last game came out maybe 5 or so years ago? Here's another example. We got another trailer today, October 4th, Dead Space remake. I knew it was happening. I just forgot about it. Got another trailer for it today. And that one might be a bit more justified in the fact that it was a PS3 title and we haven't seen it since then. So yes, a remake will be good if it looks a lot better, performs a lot better. But we also should have had part 2 and maybe 3 included as well. The reason why I say that is because look at some of the best remakes we've gotten in the past. The Spyro games, the Crash Bandicoot trilogy, the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games, Resident Evil 2 and 3. Now, I understand for the Spyro trilogy, the Crash trilogy, and the Tony Hawk games, those were PS1 games that got remastered into those packages. Which, okay, if you don't want to put Dead Space 2 with the package, that's fine. But at least those games are charging $40 to get 2 or 3 games for $40. Resident Evil 2 and 3, I know that one's a bit different. They could have done those in a package as well together. Instead, they sold them individually. And while Part 3 Remake was pretty bad, Part 2 Remake is fucking amazing and horrifying. It's October. If you haven't played it yet, this is the perfect month to play it. So, those were examples of really good remakes, and I think they should be following that kind of trend to remake some of the older games. I'm going to show you, I forgot to mention this a little earlier, but I'm going to show you right now some photos I found from this website that was taking very close-up images of Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn and comparing it to Aloy in Horizon Forbidden West. Some of these screenshots, you can barely tell a difference in terms of like, oh my god, we need to remake this game now because of how bad it looks. And there are some screenshots where you're like, I can see why they want to remake it. So I'm going to share that here, and you can see it there. I don't think it needs a remake. And going back to the idea of games that got remade or needs to be remade, I'm going to give you some examples of games that should get a remake. Ground up, from the beginning remakes. And I'm going to, get some people who agree with this. Most likely. Jak and Daxter, all those games should get a remake from the ground up. I'm talking Jak 1, 2, and 3 in one remake collection, and then maybe do Daxter, Final Frontier, or Lost Frontier, whatever they call that last one, and Jak X in another remake package. Or just drop the other two and just put Jak X with the trilogy and remake all that ground up. That would be fucking amazing. The Uncharted trilogy, if you were going to waste the time and remake Last of Us, remake Uncharted. They came out on PS3, early PS3, and then they got remastered on PS4. They could look just as good as Uncharted 4 and The Lost Legacy. You should remake those Uncharted games, and that would have been worth the money. People would pay for that. Sly Cooper. What happened to Sly Cooper? I think that was Sucker Punch. They stopped making those games. That would be a cool remake to do, especially after seeing Spyro and Crash. Ratchet and Clank. You can remake some of the older Ratchet and Clank games. Infamous 1 and 2, God of War 1, 2, Chains of Olympus, Ghost of Sparta, maybe God of War Ascension, maybe God of War 3. Those would be really cool remakes. Just as long as they don't do what they did with the GTA trilogy remake, which is outsourcing it to a bullshit mobile developer who couldn't do the project right, and they made the bullshit ass trilogy that performed like shit. It looked like shiny shit. And I just feel like there is room for these remakes if the games are old enough that either players haven't played it in years or new gamers have never experienced it. Some other examples of IPs that maybe should be tracked down to do that would be like maybe Ape Escape can come back, maybe Twisted Metal. But I think primarily the examples I gave earlier would be perfect remake examples. Maybe Skate will get would be a good remake. Maybe. I would love to see Need for Speed Underground 1, 2, and Most Wanted get a remake from the ground up. Never gonna happen, but that would be pretty great. And I want to talk about some remasters real quickly as well, because there are some people who don't know the difference between a remaster and a remake, and those people are stupid. And I think developers don't know the difference because instead of doing a remaster for games that may need a remaster, they say you're just gonna do a whole remake and charge you an arm and a leg, charge you $70 and not include all the content. Last of Us didn't include the multiplayer, and you're paying $70 for a facelift. But we had one remastered in particular that I'm gonna piss off a lot of people who watched it, who may watch this. And I'm gonna when I say this, Mass Effect Trilogy was a lazy remaster in my opinion. It didn't look that great. It was kind of ugly. It just wasn't for me. I just didn't care for it. It just didn't look good. Tomb Raider Definitive Edition was like the first remastered, so to speak, and I guess it worked for the time. But that was back in beginning of PS4's life cycle, so that made sense. Skyrim has been remastered and redone over and over again. At this point, just do a ground up remake of Skyrim. Drop whatever that fucking space game is called. I can't remember what it was called. The one that Bethesda's making. Because I don't really give a shit about that game anyway. Starfield. I don't care about Starfield. Bethesda fanboys do because they're Bethesda fanboys. It looks like shit. Looks like No Man's Sky 2.0 or something. But do a ground up of Skyrim and people are gonna buy it. Of course, you know, people are gonna buy that shit. And I just have this fear that games that should get a remastered are not happening, whereas games that don't need a remaster are happening. Like Spider-Man PS4 did not need a remaster on PS5, but it got one. I don't think it was needed at all. I think it looked fine. The original Peter Parker design was much better than the new crappy one they got. So we didn't need a Spider-Man PS4 remastered when we could have just gotten a different game remastered that would have been worth the money and time. And I want to go back up again to these remakes that we got that were great, because I forgot to mention Final Fantasy VII. The original Final Fantasy VII looks like shit. I didn't play it back in the day. I tried playing it like a year ago on Switch. I just couldn't get into it. The style that it was, the storytelling, I just couldn't get into that game. Not saying it's a terrible game. I'm just not a fan, so I didn't really get into it. But Final Fantasy VII Remake, look how it looks, how it performs, how it sounds. It's almost phenomenal. So those are the kind of games that I think are justified to get a remake. Even if you say, okay, bet, remaking Jak and Daxter Trilogy, PS5, $70. Great, I'm gonna buy it for $70 because not only am I gonna get great games that I haven't played in some time, but I'm getting 3 instead of 1. And then you have the fear of if Last of Us got a remake, if Horizon Zero Dawn is getting a remake, and if Dead Space got a remake, and then you got to pay another $70 for Dead Space 2 remake, are they going to remake God of War 2018, even though that game just came out like 4 years ago, and it still looks amazing? I don't want to see that. Red Dead Redemption 1 should get a remake. That would be a good remake. Not so much GTA 4. Fuck GTA 4. Because you even got games like Grand Theft Auto 5. That got remastered twice. From PS3 to 360 to the PS4 and Xbox One. Now it's on Series X and PS5. And yes, it looks a lot better now and everything like that. But it's just another remastered. Maybe redo the GTA trilogy remake. Redo it from the ground up. Make it look even better. Perform much better. Fire that fucking company they paid for. That fucking Grove Street Games. They fucking suck. So that's kind of the point of this video right here. Just to talk about these remakes and how often we're seeing it and how much often we're going to see it going forward. Next thing might also be a Gears of War remake from the ground up again. So I think they did one already on the Xbox One. Maybe they're going to redo Halo again. And I just don't think that they all necessarily need to be done. I would say this. If one game should get a remake, but won't happen because the company who owns it is a shitty company and they're going to fuck it up anyway, Battlefield 4 should get a ground-up remake. Okay, I'm Anthony Olan, and I approve that message. Battlefield 4 should get a full-on remake from the ground up, as long as it's not getting fucked up like they did with, what was the last one? 2042 or whatever they called it. So that's kind of the video for today of these remakes. They're not doing that great. I even talked about at one point in my attempts to film this, Skyward Sword HD was garbage and it was remastered and it didn't do well. The Mario collection that had 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy wasn't really much of a remake, more of like a somewhat remastered, as they claim, and that wasn't that great. So I think at this point, drop the remastered and in general, because you're going to be like, oh, This game came out on PS5. We're gonna remaster for PS6. No, drop the remasters and drop the remakes of games that are not super old as fuck, because that's the games that need to be remade from the ground up. The older games that we haven't played in a few years, games that are on previous generation consoles that we cannot access. Like I said, that's the video for today. Thank you guys for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to hit like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Happy October. It's my favorite month of the year. I'm actually going to maybe stream some Dead Space 1 and 2 on my Xbox before, I mean, the new one comes out. The remake comes out in January, so I got time. But it's a perfect month for me to stream it, so I'll probably do that this weekend. If you're around, stop by, and I'll see you guys next time. Whoa!